Hello again, everybody. This is Derek J407 back to you to talk about NXT TakeOver Toronto 2019, live from the Scotiabank Arena in where else but Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And it's NXT TakeOver, so you know it was nothing short of an amazing show. And yeah, that's pretty much par for the course. We had a lot of really great stuff, a really great women's match in the middle of the show, an awesome triple threat. We had just a barn burner, wild, chaotic brawl to end the show. It turned into that after having two matches prior to it because it was 2 out of 3 falls, and each fall was great. So, a fantastic main event. And overall, amazing wrestling show like you would expect from NXT TakeOver. So, they always elevate it. I say this every single time I come on here to record a review for a TakeOver show. I have yet to see a bad TakeOver show. There's been many that were good. There's been some that were fantastic, but they always deliver. And by no means was this the greatest TakeOver of all time. I wouldn't say that. And it was not a perfect show. There was a championship match on this show that wasn't exactly the best, but honestly, it's probably the weakest thing on the entire show, for me at least. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. But actually, before we get into TakeOver, because I have so much praise for TakeOver, and I feel like I should probably talk about this right before I fully dive into TakeOver Toronto. So I just wanted to quickly give my thoughts on New Japan. The New Japan G1 Climax. We had the finals of the A block earlier this morning as of this recording, and we know the winner of this year's A block. So spoiler alert, in case you are behind on the G1, you can just skip ahead a few minutes here. But the winner of the A block was none other than Kota Ibushi. So Kota Ibushi is the winner of the A block. He will go on to meet the winner of the B block, who will be crowned tomorrow, and they will meet on, I believe, Monday, which would be August the 12th, and they will meet to see who wins this year's G1 Climax and goes on to challenge for the IWGP Championship at Wrestle Kingdom next year. And just based on everything that's gone on, of course, I'll have a whole separate review for the G1 finals, but just my prediction right off the top of my head, I believe that it'll come down to, of course, Kota Ibushi and Tetsuya Naito. I believe Naito will be the winner of the B block. The two will meet in the finals, and an early prediction right now is that Kota Ibushi wins the 2019 G1 Climax, goes on to challenge Okada, and does exactly what he did in the match that we saw earlier today in the main event of the A block, and that's beat Okada to become the new IWGP champion. So that's just my prediction right here. And I just wanted to briefly talk about the G1 because I have not really focused much on the G1 on my YouTube channel. I reviewed the first night of it and haven't really talked about it much, but I have been following it pretty closely. And that's just my thoughts right out the way. So we can now get into TakeOver. The first match, the opener, was for the NXT Tag Team Championships. The Street Profits, Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins, defending the championships against representatives of the Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. Canada's own Kyle O'Reilly, by the way. So, of course, the big story heading into this show was the Undisputed Era's quest to capture all of the gold in NXT. Of course, Adam Cole is the NXT champion, and Roderick Strong was in the match for the North American Championship. And of course, right here, we had first up Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish going after their, or at least will be Kyle O'Reilly's third tag team championship. So it was heavy pressure on these guys, and a lot of people felt it was a foregone conclusion going into the show that the Undisputed Era was going to walk out with all the gold, and that's not exactly what happened. But I did enjoy this match a lot. They tend to open TakeOver with the Tag Team Championship match, and it seems to always deliver especially when you have two really great teams. And for the last couple of takeovers, we've mainly seen it be Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish in that role, and they deliver. And this was no exception. So the two of them have great chemistry as a tag team, so they definitely did a great job in this match. And the Street Profits are really, really freaking good. We see a lot of praise for Montez Ford. A lot of people see a lot of bright things ahead of him. I second that. The dude is just oozing charisma. He is extremely gifted in the ring. But a lot of people kind of sleep on Angelo Dawkins. Not to say he's bad, but just between himself and Ford, a lot of the shine seems to be on Ford. But this was a really good coming out party for Angelo Dawkins. He was the powerhouse in this match, and he did a lot of big power moves. At one point, he kind of threw one of the Undisputed Era guys into the other in the corner. It was just the visual of him just launching one of them into the other was pretty humorous. But he was pretty impressive in this match too. But again, Montez Ford is the star of the pairing between himself and Dawkins. And at one point, he tried to get his rock on, Dwayne Johnson rock, and he was setting up for a people's elbow, but when he bounced off the ropes, he got stopped by Kyle O'Reilly. But that didn't stop him from later on hitting the rock bottom on Bobby Fish. Of course, Mauro Ranallo on commentary called it a Uranagi, which is the name of the basic move, but with the whole rock theme he was going for, it was clearly supposed to be a rock bottom. So the match was really good, but the shock came at the finish. So we see Dawkins setting up for a spear. It looked like he was going to spear both Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, but Fish managed to move out of the way. He struck O'Reilly. He turned back around, managed to take down Bobby Fish. Meanwhile, over on the other side, we see Montez Ford going up top, coming down with a picture-perfect, absolute beauty of a frog splash onto Kyle O'Reilly to get the 1-2-3 and retain the NXT Tag Team Championship. Now, this was a shock, one, because I, like a lot of other people, felt that the Undisputed Era was going to walk out with gold at the end of this show. But two, we've seen the Street Profits appear in backstage vignettes and skits and segments and all that kind of stuff, just acting pretty comedic in recent weeks on Monday Night Raw. So I figured they'd be getting called up pretty soon, and they'd join a list of other tag teams who have won the championships and lost them quickly because they are needed on the main roster. But that was not the case here. But they did something interesting where they pinned the wrong man. Now, I said that he pinned O'Reilly, and I'm pretty sure that's what happened. But apparently, O'Reilly was not the legal man in the match. Apparently, it was Bobby Fish. And unless I'm getting the two mixed up, but whoever got pinned was apparently not the legal man in the match. And I think they even had a video on, it came out during the show, but I saw it pop up on Twitter and maybe even the YouTube channel where Fish and O'Reilly were complaining about that. So this may not be over just yet. So we'll see if that gets further developed and we get a rematch on NXT TV or at the next TakeOver show, which probably isn't going to be until November. So we'll see how they follow up on that. But I have no problem seeing this match again. Speaking of matches I have absolutely no problem seeing again, that brings us to the next match. Candice LeRae taking on Io Shirai. Candice LeRae's first big match on a TakeOver special, going up against her former best friend and ally in Io Shirai, who turned her back on her after she failed to capture the NXT Women's Championship from Shayna Baszler in a steel cage match a few weeks ago on NXT television. And she has transformed into Evil Io, who wears all black and has much darker entrances and is drop dead gorgeous. Not that Io Shirai was not beautiful before. She is a beautiful woman. But I saw up and down my timeline on Twitter people talking about just how mesmerizingly beautiful Io Shirai is, and just how the look that she gives is just so, and I'm hard pressed to disagree. No pun intended. I did not mean that in any other way. But yeah, she looks unbelievable in this new role. And that has not really affected her wrestling ability because, just like before, she's fucking incredible. She is an amazing wrestler, and she had that on full display in this match. Right from the get-go, Candice LeRae went right after Io. They fought a little bit. The bell rang. They fought to the outside. But Io got the best of Candice when she hit her with a suplex onto the announce table. And Candice struggled to get back in the ring before the count of 10. I thought for a split second there they were going to do a count-out win for Io with seconds of the match, and I thought that was just going to be horrible. They were going to shortchange these women, but they did not do that. Not only did she break the count, but they went on to have one of the best matches on this entire show. Like I said, Io Shirai, we already know how great she is. We've seen her a bunch of times, but we haven't really seen a whole lot of Candice in big match situations like we did on this show. Like in past takeovers, she's just been there to help other people, like Io Shirai. But more specifically, her husband Johnny Gargano, especially in his feud with Tommaso Ciampa last year. So we haven't really seen her get her own spotlight, but she did in this match, and she did a lot of really impressive things. Like at one point, Io Shirai was on the outside. Candice did a dive through the ropes, or a tope suicida, as Mauro Ranallo would call it. She did the dive through the ropes, but instead of colliding with the dive, she turned it into a tornado DDT right there on the outside on Io, and I just thought that was just really cool. Another point in the match, Io had Candice up in position for a fireman's carry, and she went to deliver her whatever her move was that she was going to deliver, but Candice turned it into a reverse Rana, which was another really impressive thing she did in this match, and she was very impressive. But like I said, Io Shirai is the one who just turned heel, so you know she's the one who's going to get a lot of the focus, and she did. She hit her moonsault, but Candice managed to kick out at 2. That sent Io into the deep end. She just started unwailing or not unwailing, but wailing on Candice, and she eventually locked her in the Koji clutch, which Candice didn't tap out to. She passed out, but she still lost, and Io Shirai won. So the right outcome, Io is the one who turned heel. She's clearly the one getting the big push right now, and Candice is in the role of the come from behind underdog babyface, which serves her well in this feud. Like I said, my words don't even do it justice. This match was incredible. One of the best matches on the entire show. I loved it, and I would love to see these two women compete again in the future. And hopefully the next time we see them on a takeover, well, maybe not the next time, but hopefully in the future, when we see this match again on a takeover show, it's these two competing in the NXT Women's Championship match, and not exactly the NXT Women's Championship match that we did end up getting on this show. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Up next was supposed to be the triple threat match, but we heard a loud bro from nowhere, and out came Matt Riddle from the crowd, who got in the ring, got a huge ovation, and called out Killian Dane, who the two of them have been having some issues recently on NXT television. Killian Dane made his return to NXT and immediately targeted Matt Riddle. So there was no match on this show. They were supposed to have a match the previous week on TV, but that turned to a brawl when Dane attacked Riddle. So Riddle called him out. The two of them fought. They fought in the ring a little bit, then they fought around ringside, then they fought up the rampway onto the stage. A bunch of referees and security guards were trying to break them up. Riddle started to beat some of them down. Dane was beating some of them down. They hit some big moves on each other. Riddle hit his striking running knee on Dane. Dane hit his running cross body. But the big closing spot was Riddle was on Dane's back. He had him in like a sleeper hold kind of thing. So he was on his back. Dane was trying to get him off of him. And they're right near the edge of the stage. And there's this lone security guard who's just standing right there on the edge for some reason. And he's standing right in the path of when Dane, while Riddle is still on his back, comes colliding into the poor little security guard. And they all come crashing down off of the stage through a bunch of tables that are on the floor. And that was pretty much the end of the segment. So, just a hot little segment to get Matt Riddle and Killian Dane on the show, progress their feud, and yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. They showed Austin Theory in the crowd. He is the current Evolve champion, and he basically got no reaction from the crowd. They showed him. I assume he was on camera for the crowd to see, but they really didn't react to him. But he is a very talented wrestler. My first exposure to him was on the Evolve 10th anniversary special that they aired on the network. I hadn't really, I heard of him, but I wasn't really familiar with any of his matches prior to that. But apparently he might be starting with NXT pretty soon, so we'll maybe be seeing more of him. And so now that leads us to the triple threat match for the NXT North American Championship. The Velveteen Dream defending his championship against Roderick Strong, representing the Undisputed Era, and of course the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne. So for Velveteen Dream's entrance, we heard the Mountie, that theme music from the Mountie, one half of the fabulous Rougeau brothers from back in the early 90s, late 80s era of WWF. When the Mountie theme hit, I popped a little bit because that theme song is a guilty pleasure of mine. But it quickly transitioned into the people who were kind of marching to the theme song. It was revealed that they were the break dancers or dance crew for the Toronto Raptors, and they were doing a bunch of really impressive dance moves, and that brought out the Velveteen Dream. So really cool entrance for him, and he incorporated the Mountie's theme song, so A+ effort from me. This was another great match. All three guys in this match were phenomenal. Everyone got a chance to shine, which is the key to these triple threat matches. It never really had any dull moments. It never slowed down. Something was always happening, which is a great part of the triple threat. You know, they have a formula where, you know, two guys are fighting, one guy gets knocked out, and so two guys start fighting. You might see some double teams in there, but they kept up the pace extremely well in this match, and that I just appreciate that. Everyone got some unique spots in this match. At one point, the Dream locked in a sharpshooter on Roderick Strong and got a huge ovation from the crowd when he locked that in. But Pete Dunne hit a drop kick to break up that. Speaking of Pete Dunne, a little bit later, both Roddy and Dream were on the outside. Pete Dunne from the top rope hit a diving moonsault onto both men on the outside. Dream was a little farther behind, so he had to kind of run up to it to get the brunt of it, and he really didn't get all of it, so Dunne kind of landed it on both guys, but not really. At one point, Roddy, he had both men kind of propped up in the ropes, and he was doing that running back and forth, rope to rope, forearm to both of them, so just kind of knocking his forearm off of both of their faces. So I thought that was really cool. But the most impressive thing that Roddy did in this whole match was he managed to get both men locked in the stronghold, his submission hold, and he got both men locked in it. Didn't hold it for long because, you know, that's probably a lot of energy for him to do, but it was a really cool visual. But the finish came. Dunne was down, and both Roddy and Dream were just going back and forth trying to hit their moves on him and pin him. But it led to Roddy hitting the end of Heartache on Pete Dunne. But before he could get the 1-2-3, Dream came off the top with the Purple Rainmaker elbow. That knocked Roddy out of the way and left Dunne all by himself for the Dream to cover and get the win. So Velveteen Dream still the North American champion. Dunne was out, and Roddy, of course, was not thrilled about it, but these guys had a really great match. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, once again, Undisputed Era was not leaving TakeOver with all of the gold, but they did put on some really good matches, that opener and this one. Roddy was really impressive in this match. It's easy to forget just how really damn good Roderick Strong is, but yeah, he's really, really fucking good, and this is just a reminder of that. But all three of these guys are really good. But the opposite of that is something that was not really good, and that was the match that came up next. The NXT Women's Championship match, Shayna Baszler defending the title against Mia Yim. A match that, honestly, I wasn't really all that into going into the show. I wasn't feeling Mia Yim. I like Mia Yim. She's really talented. She's extremely talented. I've been a fan of her ever since I first saw her in Impact when she was doing the Dollhouse gimmick with what was her name, Marty Bell or whatever. Yeah, it was Jade and Marty Bell. Their names, right? So she was really talented then, and she's talented. She's the Blasian baddie or whatever she wants to call herself. And I really like her in that regard, but I just did not think that she would be the one to dethrone Shayna to win the championship on this show, and that's basically what happened. She put up a good effort, but was not enough to beat Shayna Baszler. But the story of this match was the crowd. They got into certain things in this match, but overall they just weren't really feeling it. At one point, Mia hit a code red, or as she calls it, the code blue, since her hair is blue. She hit the code blue off the top rope, and that got a big reaction from the crowd. But honestly, aside from a few other things, that was really it. She tried to work over Shayna's arm at one point. She like drop kicked. Shayna's arm was in between the steel steps and the steel post, and she kind of drop kicked the steps into her arm into the post. So she was working over her arm, and she also did a few underhanded tactics in this match, like raking the eyes and doing stuff like that, trying to play dirty on the same level as Shayna Baszler. So these two tried. They did their best. Shayna Baszler continues to impress me and get better and improve every time I see her on these takeover shows. But the crowd just really wasn't into it. And honestly, coming after that Io Shirai match, or the Io Shirai Candice LeRae match, and that triple threat, and even the opener and the Matt Riddle Killian Dane brawl, a lot of really good stuff was going on. And this match kind of quieted the crowd a little bit, especially with the crowd knowing that Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano were coming right up next in the main event. It was kind of hard for them to stay invested in this match. So I feel bad for Shayna and Mia to a certain degree. I know they're really good friends, behind the scenes. So I'm sure they, had really high hopes for this match, and were hoping to really tear it down, but it just didn't work. And if you did like this match and you were really into it, and the crowd silence either didn't bother you or you found it a little offensive, I'm sorry you feel that way. But the crowd, it's not like they booed. They didn't chant. I didn't hear any CM Punk chants or anything like that. I didn't see any beach balls. They were still watching it. They just didn't react to it. So some could say that might be worse. Honestly, it's better to just still watch the match than try to throw beach balls and chant for wrestlers who haven't been in the company in 5 years or something like that. So they tried, but it just really didn't work. They weren't really clicking. The match wasn't anything special, and the crowd just really wasn't all that into it. So sucks to say it, but yeah, Shayna Baszler, she is still the NXT Women's Champion, and I would love to see her next match at TakeOver be a triple threat with Io Shirai and Candice LeRae, and let one of them win the title. Hopefully Io, so we can get Io and Candice again, and that time for the Women's Championship. So we'll see. Then the main event, Adam Cole, baby, defending the NXT Championship against Johnny Gargano. Cole Gargano 3, the third straight TakeOver event with a championship match between these two. And once again, we get 2 out of 3 falls, except this time it was more 3 stages of hell. Both men got to pick their own fall, and if it needed to go to a third fall, as unbelievable as it is that this match would have ended at 2, in the event that it went to a third, it was going to be a stipulation named by William Regal. So Cole picked the first stipulation, which was just a standard wrestling match, and his rationale was he beat Gargano before in straight up wrestling matches, so he was going to do it again. And this was the early part of the entire match, so there was kind of a feeling out process, although I don't know how much feeling out they really needed to do. They already had 2 previous TakeOver main events, but they were just kind of wrestling a little bit. It wasn't anything. It wasn't like there was nothing special about it. Early on, Cole hit a wheelbarrow German suplex on Johnny Gargano on the ring apron, which I know sucked. I'm sure it was safe, but it looked brutal. But believe me, it was not the most brutal thing to happen in this match, though. But for now, for that early part of it, it looked pretty brutal. But it was just a standard wrestling match for the most part until Cole started, for whatever reason, wanted to bring in a steel chair. He brought in a chair. He tried to use it, or he faked like he was going to use it, but the referee took it from him, had his back turned, and Cole hit a low blow on Gargano. He went for a pin, but Gargano kicked out of it. But eventually Gargano got back up, and he saw the steel chair, and he used it on Adam Cole to get himself disqualified and got Adam Cole the first fall victory. So it's like, why did he do that? Why would he give Cole the first fall? And of course, like I kind of had an idea, by the end of the match, this was stupid, but it made sense in the immediate, which was that this gave Gargano an advantage heading into the next fall, which was the street fight. And once the announcer made it clear that this match would now be a street fight, Cole immediately got out of the ring, tried to run away, but Gargano just launched the steel chair he had right over the top rope onto the outside, and the chair collided right into Cole's face. So that's the closest thing to a chair shot to the head we're going to see in WWE. I wonder if they're getting fined for that. But the two started to fight all around rings. Well, not ringside, but they fought into the crowd. They were fighting around the crowd and all that kind of stuff. They eventually made their way back to ringside. Gargano was on top of some crates that were over by the barricade, and he dove off of it onto Cole, and the two eventually found themselves over by the announce tables, and Cole had Gargano underhooked. He had his arms underhooked and looked like he was going to hit some move on the American announce table, but then Gargano kind of slipped out and gave him a backdrop over his head, and Cole came crashing down through the Spanish announce table. So that was the big spot there. Cole eventually set up a chair in the corner in the ring. He looked like he was going to do something to Gargano through that chair wedged in the corner, but it was Gargano who managed to utilize it, and he ended up hitting a lawn dart. He lawn darted Cole into that chair in the corner, locked in the Gargano escape, and Cole tapped out. So we were one fall apiece. Shockingly, they needed to go to a third fall. And at that moment, we realized what the third fall would be, and it was going to be a steel cage match. But not just any steel cage match, a steel cage match with weapons. So we got a bunch of chairs and kendo sticks. There was a fire extinguisher there. Barbed wire surrounded the thing. So it was done up with the works. And everything up to this point was really good, but this with the cage was out fucking standing, provided they killed each other. But it was still a lot of fun to see the crazy shit that they were doing in this match at this point. Of course, like I said, kendo sticks, so both men used kendo stick shots on each other, and they were still super kicking each other, so a lot of stuff there. At one point, Cole was on the top rope, and Gargano got a fire extinguisher, and he just sprayed it right in Cole's face, and ended up hitting a tornado DDT off the top onto some steel chairs that were set up as if, were prepared to sit, as if they were prepared to be sat on. So the lips of the chair were up. So when Gargano hits this tornado DDT, his head, Cole's head that is, comes crashing down onto the lips of these chairs, and it just looked absolutely brutal. That was a sick, stupid spot, if you ask me. That was absolutely brutal. Cole hit the Panama Sunrise at one point on Johnny Gargano, but it was only good for a 2 count. He hit another one from a ladder. So he climbed up, not to the very top, but close enough, near the top of a ladder, came right down and hit the Panama Sunrise once again. Again, only good for a 2 count. Both men, or at least Gargano first, saw a sledgehammer up on the top of the cage. They tried to get it. Eventually, Gargano was the one who got it, and he used it and just crashed the sledgehammer right into Adam Cole's ribs. He brought he set up some tables on one side of the ring, and he went up top to do some move, but then Adam Cole kind of slipped off the table and went to the other side of the ring. So Gargano climbs back down. He goes to the other side of the ring. He goes up top and hits a Canadian Destroyer from the top rope, and only good for a 2 count. So that makes 3 pile drivers hit in this match that were all 3 kicked out of. Wasn't a big fan of that, but it looked impressive. So the big finishing sequence, both Gargano goes to the very top of the cage. He has some pliers with him, and it was funny because he had a bag, and when you have a burlap sack kind of bag in wrestling, the fans are conditioned to think that there's either glass or thumbtacks in it. So when Gargano opened it and there was just some pliers, the fans booed, which I thought was funny. So he climbed up to the top of the cage, used the pliers to break off a piece of the barbed wire. He was preparing to use it on Adam Cole. So both men climb up to the cage. There's this table that's kind of positioned as a platform on the top of the cage. Both men are standing on top of it. The crowd's chanting, "Please don't die." Me in my apartment is also chanting, "Please don't die." So both men are standing on top of it. And Gargano goes to use it. He goes to like kind of shove it in Cole's face, but then Cole blocks him. And I don't know who really initiated the fall, but both men just came colliding and just crashed and burned. They fell right off of the platform, 20-something feet. Not really, but you know, in WWE world, it was 20-something feet. Off the cage, crashing through the tables that were set up a little bit earlier. And Cole was positioned to cover Johnny Gargano. He got the cover, and he got the win. So the Undisputed Era as a whole may not have left with the gold, but Adam Cole did. And Adam Cole is still your NXT champion, and that puts the final stamp and mark and ends this really entertaining feud between Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole. This was just such a fucking war. It was brutal. That the third fall, the final couple minutes of this whole match was just insane. And altogether, this was a great match. Of the 3 matches we've seen them have at TakeOver so far, this was probably my favorite. That first match they had WrestleMania weekend in New Orleans was just fantastic. The one they had at TakeOver 25 was really good, but it was a bit of a step down. And this one was just great. It started off slow with the first fall, but it built up into what it turned out to be. And overall, I really enjoyed it. And it was a great way to end this feud and a great way to end this show. Like I said, overall, it was a great show, top to bottom. It wasn't perfect. I mean, you know, like I said, the Mia Yim Shayna Baszler match, and it's not really their fault. Just what they did just didn't really register with me and a large portion of the crowd. The opener was really fun, and of course the shock of the Street Profits retaining, you know, helped that out a lot. I can't praise it enough. Io Shirai and Candice LeRae, they were just so great. That match was so amazing. I was very proud of them with that match. And again, a future TakeOver, that should be the Women's Championship match. And of course, the triple threat, Dunne, Roddy, and Velveteen Dream. Great stuff. And even the Matt Riddle-Killian Dane brawl was really fun. But that main event, holy hell, that main event was something else. So, a really great show, and it's going to be very tough for SummerSlam to top it tomorrow night. Of course, SummerSlam is going to be tomorrow night in the same arena, I believe, and they got their work cut out for them. But it's a solid lineup, but we'll see. And I'll be giving my thoughts on SummerSlam tomorrow, of course. And yeah, so that's it for me right now. Love TakeOver. So see all you guys tomorrow night for SummerSlam.